Equity Mate.
I will say this about investing. Everything you do learn is cumulative. What I learned at 20 is useful.
Welcome to another episode of Equity Mates, a podcast that covers our journey of investing. Whether you're an absolute beginner or approaching Warren Buffett's status, our aim is to break down your barriers from beginning to dividend. My name is Bryce, and as always, I'm joined by my equity buddy, Ren. How are you going?
I'm very good, Bryce. Very excited for this episode. We're speaking to a company leader of a company that I can't claim to understand, but a company that I am hearing so much about from the Equity Mates community. So very excited to maybe not fully understand it by the end of this episode, but definitely understand it a lot better than I do right now.
That's it. It's our pleasure to welcome Dr. Leslie Chong, who is the CEO and Managing Director of Imugene. Leslie, welcome.
Thank you so much, Bryce and Alec, for that lovely intro.
So this is in partnership with the ASX CEO Connect, which brings together listed companies and retail investors. Hosted virtually by the ASX every second month, it's a great opportunity for you to hear from CEOs and leaders of some of the most popular companies on the ASX from the comfort of your own home. So go to the CEO Connect page on the website to find out more and register your interest. We have been lucky to partner with them and get 6 interviews over the coming year, and Leslie is one of the first to join us, and we're really excited. So if you haven't heard of Imugene, it's an ASX-listed biotechnology company working to change the paradigm of cancer treatment, trading under the ASX ticker IMU. Leslie has over 20 years experience in leading clinical and department development in oncology, including at major pharmaceutical companies, Genentech, GSK, and Roche. And apologies if I pronounced those wrong, Leslie, but we can't wait to unpack this all. So, Ren, let's kick it off.
Leslie, I'm sure that won't be the last thing that one of us mispronounces in this episode. So you're just going to have to forgive us for that. But look, we love to start these interviews by having the company's CEO describe their company in their own words. So to kick us off today, what is Imugene?
I think Imugene is, by definition, is quite simple. We're trying to change the paradigm of how cancer patients are treated with therapies that are out there. I mean, cancer, as we know it, is just a heinous disease. It's a mutation gone awry in your body, and they used to either cut it out or they used to just put chemo on it in hopes that it would just kill it off. Or there's radiation, of course. And then we started attacking sort of the signaling pathway, and now we've moved on to immunotherapies. And righting the wrong of your immunity is exactly where Imugene is at. So we've got various different products that modulate your immune system to fight your own cancers in a way, because we think that that is possibly a nicer approach, a durable approach with safety and toxicity being kept at bay. Because again, it's your own immune system doing the fight against your own kinds of cancer.
So I'm sure there's going to be a lot of jargon over the next sort of 40 minutes. So let's start unpacking that. Imugene has 3 technology platforms: Oncolytics, CF33, oncolytic virus, and B-cell immunotherapy. For those of you like us who aren't scientists and have no idea what all of that means, can you take us through each of those platforms?
Absolutely. So it's a virus, and we all know what viruses can do, right? Right now, we're living in the age of COVID and the pandemic, and it keeps mutating and et cetera. We have an oncolytic virus. So onco just means cancer. So we have a virus that purely has an extreme hatred for solid tumors and malignant cells, and it only replicates in those cells. So we have an oncolytic virus, pretty easy to understand, right? It infiltrates into solid tumors, expeditiously replicates, implodes that malignant cells, and then imparts the virus, and then that whole process happens again and again. And with that backbone of an oncolytic virus that we call CF33, we have also placed in this gene or a signature called CD19. It's cluster differentiated. It happens to be the 19th one. This gets shuttled up to the surface of these solid tumors. And then when you combine a CD19 directed targeted therapy, in that combination, you get like a 3-pronged punch to the virus. So that's what we call on-CAR lytics. And then we have the platform of the pure play, which is the vaccinia backbone in combination with other therapies. So those are two separate platforms. And then we have the B cell vaccine. So you have two arms of your immune system. You have your B cells, you have your T cells. And this one, what it does is it modulates your B cells to create your own antibodies, little drugs. Your body becomes this drug-making system that goes after a certain target. So we have a vaccine and a virus. So that in a simplest way, we've got two arms of your immunity just working against your cancer targets.
Wow.
And in terms of where these platforms are in development, trial, and commercialization, are they all available for cancer patients today, or are they in different stages of development? Can you give us an idea of where these products are?
Absolutely. So with our B cell therapies, those are the most advanced in the clinic. They're still considered investigational because they have not been marketed. So what happens is in clinical trials, you have to prove that it works either by itself or in combination or better than what's already marketed. So that's exactly what we're doing. So we're looking at combination because we like to play nice we don't consider anybody else our competition. So we have combination therapies with my former company, Genentech Roche, in a lung cancer trial. We also have a combination with Merck's Corona and Pfizer's product with our Hervax in gastric cancer, as well as our recently announced MSD, Merck's combination with pembrolizumab.
Wow. So if we can ground this conversation in, I guess, the patient experience, can you give us an idea of the world before Imugene and the world after Imugene? How has your technology changed the treatment, or how will it change the treatment of cancer for patients?
Well, I think it's going to be one of those situations where hopefully patients don't have to come in every 2 weeks, sit in an infusion chair for a couple of hours, losing their hair, what have you. Currently with our Hervax studies, patients are coming in every 3 months to just get their vaccine as a booster shot. And then they hopefully go on to live a normal life. So that patient's experience could be pretty much, controlling their cancers, being able to come in infrequently to their doctor visits, and having that quality of life that we all deserve, and living the life, longer, better, with cancer therapies in mind. So both our products has that because of our modulating the immune system. So you could envision that, current patients have to come in, they get diagnosed, they go through a series of chemo and battles and taking therapies and infusion chairs and, oral drugs to control their side effects, etc. I'm hoping that life after Imugene, and if a few of our products gets commercialized, I'd love to see our mothers, our cousins, our daughters, what have you, our families, to be able to go into a cancer center infrequently, get their vaccine, get their viral dose, go on with their life.
That would be amazing. My mother had leukemia, and the process that she went through, the treatment process was horrific. So to understand the impact that this could have on patients is truly amazing. So Leslie, there are a number of other competitors in the space working to commercialize similar technology. So can you talk us or give us an idea of what that competitive landscape looks like, who's out there, and how do you really differentiate between some of the bigger players?
I actually love competition because you can build on the shoulders of giants. So when they win, we win, because that validates a certain target that we're going after. I'm glad that there's more choices for cancer patients, because the goal of every biotech company in cancer is really not to obliterate other competition. It's really to provide another therapy line for our patients. So this is what we're here for. So I love competition. And the competition, sure, the landscape is quite cluttered, but that's good because we're all working towards a better cure, better quality of life, and better responses and durability for our cancer patients. And what differentiates imaging is our safety profile. We think that we can offer up the same level of efficacy, the same level of response, even in combination, because right now, cancer therapy is all about inhibiting lots of different signaling paths, lots of different ways so that we're really just stifling the growth of your tumors. And so if we can offer up a lot of safety and toxicity, that combination becomes much easier, right? You want to take a lot, you want to be able to take a combination, even 2, 3 different kinds of cancer drugs or cancer therapies, so that we can really just push back the growth of your tumors or just inhibit it altogether. And what's happening now is that the response rates are great when you combine therapies, but so is the side effects. And so if we can offer up a very, good safety profile, toxicity profile, then that combination becomes easier. So I think that's the true differentiation of imaging. And with our product we call OnCarlytics, there's really nothing like it in the world that I can see, in that we can infiltrate into every solid tumor, shuttles up these little flags called CD19, and then you add a powerful therapy against the CD19 against a solid tumor, then you can obliterate that cancer and you have that durability and the memory effect, and that goes on and on. There's really, solid tumors tend to be quite mosaic in histology, and it profiles itself into several different mutations. So in order to target it, you have to combine a lot of different medication or hope that the other mutation doesn't make it grow any bigger. And with this, we just cover it in one signature so that a powerful therapy can come in there and just obliterate it. So that's the huge paradigm shift that we're hoping that we can impart into the cancer therapy repertoire.
So Leslie, obviously we're an investing podcast here, and at some point we have to turn to the numbers. When you look at these 3 platforms, when you look at your drug development pipeline and all the things that you're working on, how do you look at the financials here, the market size, the revenue opportunity? What could that look like for Imugene in the future?
So I think with OnCarlytics, that's huge because we've really changed the landscape of how solid tumors can be changed to be, completely looked at by a therapy. So it's sort of a mark and kill approach, which is quite unique. So the market upsize could be quite huge, I would imagine. But I have to be honest, I generally don't think about that when I'm looking at cancer therapies, because you just never know what the landscape's going to provide. If we produce or develop our therapies in the right way, I always say, follow the science and the value will come. And that's what I've seen in the past at previous companies that I've worked at. We've developed, I have been a part of some great therapies that I've helped develop in a very niche market that have completely blown up because it is doing some significant things to the cancer tumor microenvironment. So for me, if I follow the science and realize the goals of the science, all these opportunities will come up, and especially the marketed value. So if I thought about what the market's going to be first, then I would be developing a product towards that market that may or may not be there in the future, right? So I don't want to discount a product just because I don't think that there might be a marketed value at the end of the day, because I really believe that if we can change how we treat cancer, then we've already created value.
So you worked in San Francisco at one of the most reputable biotechs in the world, Genentech. So we're interested to know, how does Australia compare to the rest of the world when it comes to cancer research, the trial process, and particularly around the regulatory environment as well?
Well, I think imaging is actually changing the definition or how Australia is viewed, especially in early development, because when I first arrived in Australia, I really, you guys have really great initial preclinical data across a lot of the transformative science that's being created here. But it was mostly focused on marketing products that have already been approved and not that early experimental, novel therapies. And so for Imugene, we have really only novel therapies that haven't really been explored before. And so it's sort of the new kid on the block for Australia. But I've sort of adopted the philosophy and the culture of Genentech. At Genentech, I was made to believe that every therapy has a chance of development if it has a scientific merit. And that's exactly sort of the culture and the strength of Imugene, because we really believe in our therapies, and we just have to put it in the right space so that we can develop it. So I brought a lot of the San Francisco culture, which is, totally just being creative and just going out there and believing and dream the dream. And so that's how I sort of wake up every day, that we're a startup company. We're going to start afresh. We're the new kids on the block, and we're really going to make a difference here. And that's how I sort of treat the culture of Imugene, but that's really borrowed from San Francisco and Genentech, really.
I love that. I think some of Australia's big, health companies that have been really successful have been device-based. The ResMeds, the Cochlears of the world come to mind. So to hear that we're at least making some headway in terms of these new and novel therapies and something as important as cancer, it's really exciting. Although we don't Bryce and I don't quite understand everything that you're talking about, it's very exciting to hear your passion. So Leslie, before the break, we touched on a little bit about Imugene, the 3 key platforms that you're working on, and what the world could look like as you develop these drugs and these treatments. But would love to turn to Imugene as a company and how you run it as the CEO. And to start with, I guess at a high level, do you have a leadership philosophy that you bring to work as Imugene CEO?
I do. I think for me, it's all about trying to support and grow the genius that resides in each of the people that we've hired. They've all come from really a place of experience and knowledge and creativity. And I just have to build that genius, right? Everybody has a genius. Some people are great at something, not so great at other things, but I need to weed out the things that they're not great at or provide that level of support so that they can grow, because I want to ensure their success. I'm not here to demise on their career growth. I really want to be a part and support that career growth for them. Sometimes it may not be the best fit for Imugene, but I have to try. I have to see what they're great at. I also believe in work-life balance, but within the context of work ethic. So if you don't have work ethic to begin with, work-life balance is just out the door for me. And that conversation is so weird anyway, this work-life balance, because we all have this huge goal of providing meaningful therapies for cancer patients, which could be our friends, our families. So it's a greater cause than all of us. So that's sort of my growth philosophy within the company. The culture is one of, we work hard, but we also play hard as well. We'd like to have a good time. This is a very stressful regulatory environment in which to work. I think the shareholders are quite interesting in the amount of stress that they put on us, that I try not to impart on my staff and my family of employees. But it's all about, we have a strong work ethic. We have a meaningful goal here to relieve patients of some sorts of cancer. And so for us, using that experience, growing their career, growing their genius, and then supporting them throughout.
Yeah, that's awesome to hear. Yeah. As we said at the top, Imugene has been one of those stocks that has got a lot of attention and had a lot of conversation in the Equity Mates community. It had a great year in 2021, returning over 300% to shareholders. I think it was 3rd best on the ASX, and it has entered the ASX 200 in December. How much do you think about the share price as CEO?
Well, so I've had to think about it a lot lately due to the world market. I mean, if not for the war, it's COVID, et cetera, et cetera. I do think about it for sure because some of our shareholders are meaningful investors who also want to make that change. So I do think about it. But on my day to day, I have to really focus on the science. You know, I truly believe in if I build the science, they will come, right? I follow the science, the value will come. And that's where you want me to be focused at. If I'm only purely focused on the share price and I do anything sort of tricky or whatever, that's not long lasting. The long lasting value of imaging is really to build our foundational science. And that's exactly what I do.
So as investors, we're often sort of told and we learn to invest in what we know. Biotech is one of those industries that we are all really interested and excited about, but probably one that, particularly for me anyway, lies outside my circle of competence. There's a lot of complexity and within the organizations and new sort of clinical trials coming to market all the time. For our audience and for those that are really interested in investing in the space, how would you suggest, or what should we be looking at to sort of upskill our understanding of your businesses and to be able to identify yours versus some of the competitors and the nuances between each?
That's a really good question. And I don't think that it's only squarely in biotech per se. There's tech that we don't understand. I have no idea why Snapchat has things that disappear, you know, and people still invest in them.
True.
And so, I mean, I think the science, you know, has to be realized via patients. And that's the data that we're collecting. So I think it's always incredibly difficult to really do a fair assessment of purely the science, be it preclinical, be it clinical. So what I would suggest is you look at the people and the level of experience. What's been their past history of success, or maybe even if they haven't had success, maybe they've learned a great deal. Because I truly believe in you learn so much more through your failures than your success. I mean, I think sometimes being too successful makes you a little bit too ballsy and you don't look at all the things that you could have done wrong and how to correct and those kind of things. I've certainly learned a huge amount through my failures. It's about how you get up. It's not about how you fall down. And I would look at, well, the cash, you know, at hand. Do they have enough money to realize on the value of what they're saying that they're going to achieve? And the people. So I think money in the bank. Sure, you could try to understand the science to the best of your ability, but at the end of the day, you clearly will not know exactly how it's going to play out in the patients. I mean, the way I evaluate assets when we acquire them is how well do they do in preclinical? Because hopefully, even in some aspects of that plays out in the clinic, you have a win. So that's exactly how I sort of invest in my assets. And I think people should invest in, be it tech, be it anything in that forum.
Yeah, I love that point about looking at the people and looking at their track record. And I think, you know, hearing you speak today, Leslie, about how you approach, I guess, the business of this drug discovery and being really focused on the science is, I'm sure, exactly what biotech investors want to hear. And we always like to end these conversations with a few questions around the future. And would love to hear what the future of Imugene looks like. And so if we start in the short term, in the next 12 months, what does the future hold for Imugene? Is there anything in the pipeline that you can talk to us about today?
So I think across all our pipeline, I mean, and when I look at my pipeline, my goodness, it's a little bit overwhelming in that we've got 3 platforms, 5 assets, and then roughly anywhere between, we're trying to look at extreme, you know, all solid tumors in a capacity where we could target all of them. We'll have something like anywhere between 8 to 10 studies ongoing in the clinic by the end of 2022. 10 studies ongoing with FDA, with Germany, with South Korea, all these different regions. It's a pretty exciting and prolific time for imaging. So in the next 12 months, you could see all our products being in the clinic. Some of those products will have data across them, which is great. And we'll get that patient data that was signaled to whether or not we can move on to phase two, getting the proof of concept, getting the dose right to really modulate your tumor microenvironment, those kind of things, which is significant. So in the next 12 months, it's a pretty prolific time for Imugene, because I get to see across all our assets in cancer patients.
Wow. What do you think is the greatest risk to your business right now?
Well, I mean, apart from the war in Ukraine, in the next 12 months, I don't see too much of a risk, because we're just trying to get that into the clinic. Short of the FDA saying our toxicology exams or preclinical work wasn't done to the fullest and we'd have to go back. So maybe, a little shift in the timelines, but that could be the risk. But we mitigate that every single day of our lives. Every single day we get up and think, oh gosh, okay, we need the FDA has come back with this, we'll mitigate it through this way. So I think, I would seriously think that the FDA regulatory environment is such that wouldn't be the limiting factor. I don't really see too much of an obstacle, because we sort of mitigate that by the hour, on the hour. I mean, even as I'm speaking to you, I'm getting emails about this and that, and we just go. It's a constant just decision making and just navigating our products through the right channels.
Nice.
Well, Leslie, we want to say a massive thank you for joining us today. We like to always end with the same question. We like to think as long-term investors here at Equity Mates, so we like to close on a question about the long term. If you think about Imugene in 10 years from now, what would success look like for you?
Be one of our products or many of our products already in clinic, in the patients doing what it is supposed to do, that it's marketed, that we've moved, Imugene has moved on to something that's even more revolutionary, maybe genetic, re-engineering or what have you, or CRISPRs and all these other neat things. I would like to have seen Imugene already either sold to a big pharma company or marketed a product, and then we've gone on to other bigger novel products. And because I love that early development stage, because that's where the excitement, that's where you're really trying out the science to see if it works in cancer patients. So I'll leave the marketing to someone else, but I would love to see Imugene or myself and my team just getting in there and being reinvigorated by a newfangled science that's not been seen before.
Love that. So much hope.
Yeah.
Great way to end the conversation today, Leslie, and we thank you so much for your time. As I mentioned at the top, Imugene is a company that has obviously found the hearts of a lot of members of our community, so I'm sure that they would have really enjoyed listening to you today and hearing it directly from you. So thank you very much, and all the best with what sounds like an incredibly busy 2022.
Thank you so much for having me. This was a pleasure.
And if you have enjoyed today's interview, the ASX CEO Connect Day offers conversations like these and more. Head to the CEO Connect page on the ASX. Their next webinar is Tuesday, 12th of April. Link will be in the show notes. If you can't attend the live event online, be sure to check out the presentation recordings playlist after each event on their website. You can rewatch anything that you missed. But Ren, great to chat as always, and we'll pick it up next week.
Sounds good.
I will say this about investing. Everything you do learn is cumulative. What I learned at 20 is useful.